Now, I recently made a video about how deep down I recognize that for several reasons, Chanel and I were incompatible, which is something I struggle admitting as a self-proclaimed handbag lover and amateur collector, because undoubtedly Chanel is a cornerstone in the fashion world. But regardless, I briefly mentioned that there were several Chanel bags that are not of the Chanel classic flat family that I seem to have developed an affinity for over time. It's been more of a slow burn situation rather than like love at first sight, like the enemies to lovers trope where hate slowly has blossomed into love. You get the picture. And I'd be lying if I didn't admit that part of this slow burn is because I've seen other people rave about these bags so much over time that it's hard not to be even a little influenced. But is this newfound love strong enough for me to spend Chanel money on these bags? I can't quite say it is, but thankfully for each of these bags, I've found something similar from other brands that I like just as much, if not more. And on top of that, these alternatives, if you will, cost less than their Chanel equivalent. I mean, duh, that's kind of a given with the way Chanel prices have been nowadays. So in today's video, I want to specifically focus on Bottega Veneta and 3 of their recent releases that I am so excited to check out in person this summer while I am in Europe. And I cannot guarantee that I will have the self-control not to leave the store empty-handed, especially once you take into consideration the price difference and VAT refunds. So currently I have 1 Bottega bag left in my collection, and it is the double knot bag in Napa leather in this beautiful lavender color. So this bag style is discontinued. However, they are quite readily available on the pre-loved market and often at very affordable prices, typically well below $1,000. Now, I do have a review of this bag, which I think is kind of like the predecessor to the mini jodie. However, I find this so much more user-friendly compared to the mini jodie. So yeah, it's hard for me to consider the mini jodie as being the 2.0 upgraded, new and improved version of this bag. So if you like the look of the mini jodie but hate its total lack of functionality, then definitely check out its predecessor, the double knot bag. If I can find any pre-loved for a good deal, I will link them below. Now that being said, I have loved using this bag this summer. I am making good on my promise to use this bag more since I got this right at the end of summer / beginning of fall last year, and she's kind of been tucked away in my closet since. So I recently took her on a short weekend getaway, and she is just the cutest little dumpling ever, and she packs a punch for her size. She really is a carefree bag to use, considering that it's not a shoulder or crossbody bag. I also find that it's the perfect warm weather bag, because you know how leather bags tend to feel or look heavy during the summer months? Not her. Maybe it's partly because of her coloring, but I just think overall the shape and the design of the bag is what makes it feel so light and carefree and just summerish. I loved using her so much this month that I decided to hop on Bottega's website to see if it's a store I would like to add to my to-go-to boutique list for the summer, and sure enough, maybe I shouldn't have done that because I think we may be in a little bit of trouble here. So let's take a look at these bags from least to most expensive. So the first bag that caught my eye on the website is a newer release for the summer, and it is called the Medium Dust Bag. And this retails for under $2,000 at $1,850. Is this not giving Chanel 22 vibes, but classier and less in your face? I mean, this is aptly named the dust bag, which granted is barely a step above Prada's naming game if you watch one of my most recent videos, but I can appreciate it nonetheless because it at least preemptively prevents people from endearingly giving it other less flattering nicknames like the trash bag. So yeah, in my humble opinion, I do like the dust bag slightly more than the Chanel trash bag. There's not a ton of pictures on the website, but there were enough to convince me that I need to see this in person. I think for me, I'm just really attracted to the way the drawstrings snap together to form a shoulder strap. And I can only assume that with the strap drop length of over 13 inches, this would be a super comfortable shoulder carry. Comfort in the sense of its length, at least, I'm assuming still that if you really load up the bag, it's still gonna feel extra heavy just because of how thin the straps are. And plus, this is a decent size bag. It measures almost 17 by 17 inches, although it looks a lot smaller on the model, yeah. But either way, I am really feeling this bag and its price point. And I think another reason for why I'm so drawn to this is because part of me missed out on owning the mini pouch, which I still don't think I'll ever buy, only because my Mansur Gabrielle Cloud Clutch kind of fills that gap in my collection. But that dust bag to me is like the reimagined big sister version of the mini pouch. I love it. I'm curious if this is going to be released in more colors. But surprisingly, I do like the khaki. Like, I don't have a bag in that color, and it's just working for me. I think it also very much suits the style of the bag. I know this isn't going to be for everyone, but on some level, I can see why people say the Chanel 22 is such a carefree, easy to use bag. And this to me is just that, a carefree, easy to use, albeit designer level bougie drawstring bag. So yes, this is the first bag I would love to see in person. I am primarily curious to see how comfortable it is to carry over the shoulder, whether the straps are going to dig in once the bag is filled up, and also just how squishy the closure is, as in, can I scrunch it all the way down since it is made of woven intrecciato leather, and how does that scrunching of the closure actually change its shape or usability, etc. And as I'm filming this, the website still says coming soon, so here's hoping that by the time I leave on my trip, these are available in stores. The second bag that caught my eye is also a coming soon bag, and it is the Bang Bang Vanity Case for $2,400. Granted, I feel as though that's a pretty big price tag for such a little bag, and I personally never thought I would consider buying a vanity crossbody. I think I made a video about that a long time ago, about this being a trending obsession that was just totally lost on me, and maybe I've just gotten so used to seeing this silhouette that as soon as I saw this, I thought to myself, if I were to ever buy a vanity style bag, this would be it. This looks to me to be the most wearable and usable version of a vanity bag that I've seen so far. Now, granted, most would argue that this is probably more reminiscent of the Loro Piana Pochette, which was considered the hot alternative to the Mini Kelly last season. But to me, it still reminds me of the overall Chanel vanity bag trend as well, except that its shape looks a lot more wearable and the zippers actually look usable. In the color white, I think this would be such a perfect spring summer crossbody bag. And again, this intrecciato woven leather just gives it a bit more complexity and texture compared to the Loro Piana Pochette, which can look a little bit plain by comparison. And at the same time, this is much more understated than your typical Chanel vanity bag. So I would put this as the Goldilocks vanity crossbody bag. It's not too understated and it's not too overstated. It's just right in the middle, so it's stated. Final bag that caught my eye is another new-ish release, but I guess it would be the oldest of all the new releases, and it is the mini hop bag, and this retails the most on my list for $26.50. Again, this is giving me slight Chanel 31 shopper tote vibes, which is an example of a non-classic flat bag silhouette that I have just grown to really like recently. I just like how slim and slender the profile of the bag is, and granted, Chanel has quite a few different sizes of the Chanel 31 to offer. I honestly like all of them. I can imagine the big version for work and the smaller ones for everyday use. So overall, aesthetically, I love the look of the Chanel 31 shopper. I like the functionality of it being slim enough so that you could throw it in a suitcase for travel while still having a pretty good closure system at the top. And so the mini hop by Bottega was right up that same alley with that shape of the top handles, the slender profile, and of course the detachable shoulder strap. So my one concern is though the opening. I'm worried we're going to have a mini jodie zipper situation. Like, you can see the curve of the zipper and just how short the length of the zipper is in comparison to the size of the bag. So in that sense, the Chanel 31 actually seems to be more user-friendly because the entire top opens and is secured with a magnetic button closure instead. However, the handle drop on the mini hop looks big enough to actually carry in the crook of your arm, while the handle cut out hole of the Chanel 31 looks to just be like a purely top handle carry bag. So This one, it's a bit of a toss-up. I can't say I like the Mini Hop more than the Chanel 31. I guess there are pros and cons to each of these bags, so it's hard to declare a clear winner for this one, just for me personally. So I guess out of all three of these bags, this is the only one I feel would be the least likely to blow me away in person, but maybe I'll change my mind. But for now, the dust bag and the vanity case are my top two contenders for potential bags to add this summer from Bottega. If you have any of these, let me know how they are working out for you, and better yet, if you have these and the Chanel versions, let me know what you prefer. Like in 2 out of 3 instances, my gut instinct leans Bottega over Chanel, but like I mentioned in my previous video, if I start rationalizing too hard, I do have a pull back towards Chanel, but only because A, Chanel is perceived to be the better brand, and B, I feel as though if I ever change my mind about these bags down the road, I won't get as much of my money back for Bottega compared to Chanel. So even though I may prefer the simplistic aesthetic of the Bottega bags better, I can rationalize myself into thinking that it may be better if I just opted to invest in Chanel. Like that type of rationalizing between two brands never crossed my mind until I started YouTube, and more importantly, until after I became comfortable with the idea of buying and selling on the pre-loved market. Like I used to buy simply because I loved it, period. And that's a mindset that I am trying to get back. So with all that being said, those 3 Bottega bags, I'm definitely adding those to my must-see in-store list. So thank you so much for sticking around until the end. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and I'll catch up with you next time.